Now, since recording, video is up and you are on to start.
Great. So I'll call the meeting of the Heritage and Culture Committee for Thursday, January 12th to order. My name is Jeff Breck and I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for the municipality. This is the first official meeting of this committee in its new term. And as a result, it'll be the first order of business for the committee to appoint a chair. And we'll go through the process of selecting a chair. Just before we do that, and I will handle nominations, take nominations, and we'll very quickly proceed through this. But before we do that, I'd like to go around the table and just have the committee members in the room introduce themselves. And after we do the committee members, we'll do the staff that are in the room just because it's the first meeting, and then we'll proceed to the nominations. And I'd like to start here. So a quick word about yourself and your name.
I'm Chris Kearns. I've been an archaeologist for the last 18 years. I'm a background in archaeology and history, and live in Mitchell here, so I was interested in being on the committee.
Nice. Great, Christopher.
I'm Christopher Creighton. This is my second term on the committee. I've lived in Mitchell for about 6 years, and I have a lifelong interest in history and architecture, and so seemed appropriate that I be here.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm Viola Lang, and I have always had an interest in history. I do our family ancestry, and when I was looking at all the committees, this one was one of the ones that stood out to me because I like history and because Jesse's.
Great. Jesse.
My name is Jesse Britton. This will be my second term. I was the chair at the last half of the last term. Yeah, I grew up in this area on a farm in between here in Mitchell and Dublin. I'm a Dublin boy, so I'm always like put myself that way. But I moved into Mitchell last year, so I'm still getting used to that. Yeah, I've always been the history guy of our family, and excited about the culture aspect of this committee too, and just celebrating what we have here because I think we have a great little community.
Great. Councillor Phelps.
Doug Phelps, I'm one of the new councillors. Tried to get on the Heritage Committee just before COVID, and then that happened, so that really didn't work out. But I've always had an interest in local history, West Perth. I got attachments in every municipality in town here, so been a collector for a long time, and it was my interest. And also I have a hidden agenda because I'm the chair for the 150th anniversary, and there's some stuff that the Heritage Committee, there's some display stuff that we'd be looking at. And so that's it.
Good. And we're an inclusive committee. We allow Boston Bruin fans to be on our municipal committee. It's a big stretch for us.
Yeah.
But we decided to give in and allow Matt and I'll ask Audrey, and then we'll come around there. Yes.
Oh, I got to introduce myself too.
Yes, your staff person.
Yeah, Matt Burns, I'm the Deputy Chief Building Official. Yeah, I love history. My wife has got her PhD in history. Yeah, so it was a good fit to be involved with this one here.
Good. And Audrey?
My name is Audrey Pasquale, and I'm the deputy clerk, and I support all of the meetings, so I really have no trust but to be here.
Oh, yeah, I could do that.
Really interesting, though. I worked previously in London, and they have a very robust heritage advisory committee as well. And that was always interesting, so I'm glad that I could be a part of this here.
And we have an item of business today involving property. We might as well ask you to introduce yourself, and then we'll get on to the election and get on to that item of business.
Dan Cronin, lived in Mitchell here for about the last 7.5 years. Owned a few commercial properties during that time, still holding on to the Hicks House. My background is I have a master's degree in architecture from the University of Sydney. I've worked and did big developments all across the Middle East and the world. Worked for one of the biggest developers in Ontario actually right now, Drilla Holdings, which puts up multiple high rises, and here to just address things about the building I own to preserve the look. And I think it's very important to the town of Mitchell to preserve that building. It's 1837 it was built, and I would hate to see anybody ruin the look of it. And I think it's a real icon in the town.
Great, thanks. And that's, we got it on the agenda for one of the restrictions that, but I think you see it as an opportunity to keep it good. So this is the beauty thing about this process. All right. So my final duty as chair, before I turn it over to the new chair, is to administer the election of a chair for the committee for the next 4 years for the term. If there was ever a case that the chair wanted to step back in the midterm, that certainly could be accommodated, but it's generally an appointment for the 4-year term. At this point, I'll take nominations for the position of chair.
I would
Christopher.
like to nominate Jesse.
Okay, we have Jesse nominate. Jesse, are you willing to stand?
I am.
Okay, any further nominations for the position of chair? 2 more calls. Any further nominations for the position of chair? Finally, any further nominations for the position of chair? Seeing no further nominations, you're elected to the position of chair by acclamation, Jesse, and I'm going to hand the committee over to you and the agenda for today.
Perfect. Thank you for the nomination. Look forward to the new term and everything that we will get to, but today we will focus on the item in front of us. So can we have a confirmation of the agenda from?
I just have a
Yes,
question.
sure.
What's the password and which?
Oh, yes, we can get you that.
Can we
password.
get that on the live stream?
That's just it's the public.
Or you can
password.
write it down on my book if you want.
Yep, we'll get you in.
Sorry, because I
That's
never
okay.
got to download my notes.
No problem.
You want to motion the agenda?
I will.
Here, you do.
Do we want a second on the agenda? Doug is gonna say we'll tell Audrey.
Yeah, we'll get
That's
that.
okay.
Just before we get to that too, I'll
Yep.
mention that you're going to be asked to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, which, or do we have the minutes of the previous meeting?
I don't think we
Oh, we
do.
don't.
I think we're
Okay.
gonna do that the next
Yeah.
real meeting.
And when that time comes, we recognize that only 2 of you are rollovers from the previous meeting, but you'll be able to speak to that in enough, with enough robustness that that's fine. And the others
Yep.
will have to vote for it, or it won't pass. So it wouldn't be the end of the world if we didn't pass them.
Can they abstain still?
They could abstain, I think, and they wouldn't count, but Audrey would have to figure that out, but I don't think there'll be a problem.
Okay, we'll have to trust.
I
it.
know, I just try to administer the rules. Audrey's the one who knows them.
So we have Chris gonna put a motion to accept the agenda, Doug is second. Is everybody in favor of that? I can have a nod or wave. Perfect, that is passed. Any disclosure of pecuniary interests? We will put as a side note that Viola is the owner of a business within the Hicks House, but we do not believe that she has any conflict of interest, but that should be noted. And does anybody else have any other interests? Doesn't look like it. All right, so we'll go down to the report. Are you speaking on the report, or do you want us to just discuss? The report,
So we've
or-
got the staff person that will speak to this report today. If there's any questions, it's Matt Burns, our deputy chief building official, and also our building inspector. And of course, we've got the applicant.
Did you want to say anything to start, Matt?
No, not really. I just thought that the report that the consultant had prepared looked very complete and involved, and it seemed like they knew what they were talking about and they had experience with properties like this. So yeah, I really didn't see any issues from the building standpoint. Yeah, it looks like a good plan.
Good, so. Did you want to address the committee at all, or you want the report to stand as it is? Or do you want us to ask questions as we?
You can ask questions with anything you like,
Yep.
because the windows are the most important concern for us right now, especially with energy efficiency. There's leaks because they're just old,
Yeah.
they're rotted. It's a timely thing. As for the other portions of what I'd like to do over the years to the building, address the mansard roof, the slate part, the trims, stuff like that. Of course, it's all in the report that I am going to work diligently on this, but I think a lot of people can see yet this last season. I've expelled a massive amount of money on that building to just make sure it's maintained and energy efficient, but keeping it going, because I don't see any reason, especially with my background, and I built high rise, this thing could go for another 100 years if the right care is put into it. And if it's not, this is going to be an issue. Like it will deplete, and all of a sudden we'll have a building that looks like the other side of the street, which would be a crying shame. This would be nice to put this forward. And as not only I think it's the sharpest building on the main street, I'm just being selfish, but looking around, maybe this is going to set an example for other owners to step it up a notch. If you're receiving rent checks from people, let's be fair to the tenants. That's another big thing, because like I said, I work for Dribble Holdings. We literally have over 10,000 rental apartments in our portfolio, and our tenants are everything. Because if you treat them right, things are smooth, and part of being an owner of a building is you reinvest into it. And I think this is it's a good, I don't, maybe I've said enough, but this is that's the intention here.
And as a tenant in the building, we look very forward to having proper windows, because those windows leak heat, cold, moisture. It's, definitely something needs to be done. So we're very excited about it.
And I guess my only concern is when you say vinyl windows, and that would be, if you could show us that they're gonna look accurate, not, then that would be.
And I sent some pictures.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, yeah.
And pictures are kind of a little deceiving, but
Now that's like for the arch top windows that are in the top. So essentially it's going to get one more line up there, but it's actually better airflow for the tenants
okay.
up there, because before they only had the bottom piece of the window that could open up. Now it's going to be better for them. As for the building, the way it sits right now, these three windows on the right hand side are actually vinyl windows.
Yeah.
Somebody off the cuff, a previous owner, put those in before, and they look sharp. Like, you look at it, unfortunately, they were never installed correctly. There's not even silicone around them. Somebody just threw them in a weekend job, and so they didn't get caught. I want to do it the proper procedure, seal them up properly. And these gentlemen that do the windows, you're more than welcome to look around the back side of the building, because all the rest of the windows were done over the last 60 days. And it's made a world of difference. It's the same quality windows, double glazed, great. This is Centennial Windows, which is actually better brand than a lot of the other ones that are out there. And lifetime warranty on all the hardware operating, and as well for UV as well. You're not going to see a color difference by any means, but there is a UV protection as well that, again, helps with the interior finishes of the building. Doesn't ruin hardwood, helps climatize the building, because the people in the top of this thing, they're freezing during the wintertime. Their utility bills are through the roof. And during the summertime, it's hot as can be. So this is going to balance things out for them.
Thanks.
My only question was, how difficult is it going to be to repair and replace the new windows? So for the longevity of the building, if it's hard to replace and get them taken care of, 20 years down the road, is somebody else going to be able to invest to repair them? So that was my biggest concern for keeping the building maintained for a long time, was how easy is it to repair?
Putting in the new windows?
The new windows, how easy are they to repair if something happens to them,
To repair, it'll be internal. It'll be popping out panels, replace the panel, done, similar to a newer house. It's not let's have a trimmer outside with a man lift and disturb the whole main street, because doing this, unfortunately, the commercial buildings are going to be affected for a couple of days. I need a big lift to go up there properly. I'm not having hula hoos coming in and doing it off of ladders. We're doing this properly. And like right now, some of these old windowsills up there, the tenants have snow 3 inches inside of their windows. Which I can't do anything about right now. And that's where part of the investigation was. People believe these were the original windows, the replication windows. There was fires over the last 100 and almost 200 years that the windows were blown out. They're replications. They're not the original windows. None of them are. And the quality of wood and everything else that's out there these days, if you tried to go and do a wood window again, a replica, it doesn't last. Unless we're going to import the wood from Malaysia, from a rainforest that is actually brilliant wood. We all can see, especially myself being in the industry, the quality of wood that we're getting out there, it's not up to par. And these are paintable windows as well during time. So if there is something that fades, let's say 20 years down the road, these windows actually can be painted to just keep giving it that fresh look. Yeah, but it shouldn't need that. And I would like to copy something off of your beautiful building here too, that when this is all done, that circle up in the top, which is not the original, I would like to put a clock up there like you've done on the tower here, which I think is a very nice piece for the town of Mitchell, because when you drive in, you see this building coming in, like that would be just something as the final touch to do that. But there's a lot of trim work and a lot of painting and other things to go on here for sure.
You start yet, Chris? Do you have questions or comments?
Are we speaking about more than windows today, or is this?
Yeah, this is anything in here you.
The windows is gonna go on the mansard roof. We're gonna get professionals come in and look at it and see if they can strip the paint off of it and recoat this. Because the professionals have said the slate there's nothing wrong with it, which I'm surprised after almost 200 years. But there's a company out there that will pressure wash, spray the paint that was put on at one point in time. And there's a 4-part process of recoloring it again. And then they do 3 layers of a waterproofing, like a UV protection over top of it, that'll give it the longevity. The arches above the windows, the wood rot and everything that's up there is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. That's where I would like to see something like this product being used that is going to last the test of time. Because up there, there's a lot of wind, snow, everything like that. I can have something like this produced to help us out with those window arches, if you're fine with that. If it has to go back to the wood, again, it's a timely process to have a good finished carpenter up there in a man lift. I'd shut down the main street for 2.5 weeks, a guy up there playing and trying to do that, because those, if you zoom in close on the window copings at the top there, that's layer by layer of wood moldings that have all been put together. And it's those pieces there, that's all metal. That trim there, the bottom picture, that whole piece. So I'm intending on just removing that whole thing next summer off of the building, put in somebody's shop. They're gonna paint it up, beautiful, like marine type paint, put it back up again. We don't be going up again to do the maintenance. Painting that in the air, overspray on cars, all the rest of that stuff. I want to avoid whatever I can remove from the building, do it in a shop and put it back up there again. That's the intention. But the arches above those windows, it's look at page 12. Or even that one there, like that stuff, it's just rotten.
Yeah.
And I understand that that the styrofoam, the coated styrofoam is I don't know about permanent styrofoam, doesn't last forever, but I'm just going back over the report. It does recommend that original materials be used to do the restoration.
And the thing with original materials is like the tin work and stuff, of course, try to sandblast it or paint it in place where all the tin work is. The wood, when they reference original materials, it's mainly about the tin work. The woodwork that was done in '89 or whatever they decided to do this heritage restoration to the building, they didn't use real hardwood. And a prime example is the front banister. That front banister should not be destroyed. It's all softwood. That's what they used. That's why it's all rotted out. If it was real hardwood, spindles, capping, all the rest, and treated properly. We've all been to churches. We've all been to beautiful historic buildings. The woodwork isn't gone that quick. They didn't use the right material.
Right, and
Yeah.
part of it is just ongoing maintenance to preserve the wood as well.
Mhm.
I'm just a little bit uncomfortable using styrofoam. You know, if we're doing a period restoration on a designated building, because it has been designated, and because the consultants have made recommendations for restoration, there's no mention of styrofoam. And I'm personally, I'm just a little bit uncomfortable using styrofoam for
Yep.
For the decorative work.
Okay,
You've used that around the side and the back, and that's fine, because those walls are not designated.
now I
It's
did
just
not
the facade.
do styrofoam there because of fire spread. You'll notice I use Roxel insulation. Some
Okay.
people do styrofoam on that and do stucco for a house. The industry is very changed on that, especially with fire and all the rest, because one little spark on the ground floor, it'll chase that wall
Yeah.
top to bottom in seconds. That's where I used Roxel, so I don't have the fire spread. But for something like this, since it's already outside of the
Right.
membrane of the building, but this is the point of this conversation, this meeting too, like, I'm here to work with you, right?
I guess my overall question for staff is, so if we just say, yeah, this is great today as is, wonderful, then goes to council. So it's for the new member. So we're going to recommend to council that basically we reviewed it, and as far as we're concerned, this looks good, and it still, sorry, it still has to go to council. And so somebody at council can chime in whatever, so we can just say, yes, it's good as it is, or we can add our comments along the way. But then the question would be for staff is, then there's the building department. So say, next week, the manufacturer of the windows that you goes bankrupt and you need a new manufacturer or whatever, you have to go, like, then does municipal staff oversee it? Or does he have to come back to committee, or like, where is that?
The windows won't change.
No,
because that
but I-
window you see a picture of.
Yeah,
I already spent $3,000 on that window.
yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, whatever, right? Or, worst case, something happens to you.
Yeah.
And you sell the building next week and we have this plan and we're halfway through or whatever, like it's.
So I can answer the question. You're approving the report in the current proposal. You're not
Yeah.
approving and so if there was, and again, the role of the committee is to recommend approval to council, and
Yeah.
council will approve that. We'll get it to council as quickly as we can. I'm not sure if it's gonna go Monday night, Audrey, and I'll leave that with you to think about for a second, because Dan may be wanting to get it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
These minutes could be whipped up and done. But if there was a minor change, if anything else, there's very minor changes. I think the spirit of the report.
Yeah.
Will be in the interpretation of the chief building official.
Okay.
Chief building official. So we would come back to the committee if there was a material change, but I wouldn't see a change in the manufacturer or some minor change like that as being a material change.
Right, and then part of the report is also just that ongoing maintenance, so is that something that the building department would, the next 10, 15,
It can only get
Years
triggered if
or-
it would only get triggered if there was a building permit.
Yeah.
I think in order for the building department to get involved. So, these relationships are never going to work well unless you also have a good communication, chain of communication with the owner of the
Yeah.
building. And I think that there's value on both sides. Obviously, if something started, the municipality could intervene. I think Dan has mentioned that, some changes have happened in the past. Some have been kind of responsive, some haven't met the spirit of what we'd want.
Yeah.
And I think, they may have been before we had the set of policies that we have now and legislative acknowledgement that we have now.
Right.
Our recognition. So I think it's a process. But I think, we got a very willing and cooperative owner here, and I think, we have a good proposal in front of us, and staff are recommending its approval.
Yeah.
Or endorsement by the
Right.
committee and approval to the council.
And there was, from my side, two options to this. One, this little package cost over $6,000 just for this
Yeah.
report. Or there could have been, don't spend a dime on it and do the proposal to take the brass plaque off the front of the building. And I could have been here for that as well.
Yeah.
And then I would have painted the thing pink, and then it would have been loosey-goosey to anybody else. Well, I own the building, I will do this.
Right.
I can't control down the road. I have no intention of selling this building because it's a great building. It's got the elevator, everything else, and I'm spending the money
Yeah,
because I want to have this for my kids to take over. But it's just, this kind of thing is, we're showing we want to follow through on this, right? It's, nobody would spend the money on this report and the time for this if
No.
you're not gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
The only thing is that I think once the building is designated, you can't undesignate. It's, if a building is designated, then then it falls into, it's under the Heritage Act. It's a legal entity then. And
So it can't be undesignated, you can't find it on the designation.
well, I don't know, I've never heard one being, having a designation lifted.
And
So-
from a staff perspective, I mean, we don't have that before us. I think,
Yeah.
certainly, I don't think that's where this one's headed, but.
No.
How many of you people have been in the Hicks house, either in any of the stores or up in any of the apartments?
If they're on torn apart.
And I'm not talking about when it was a bar.
No, I mean, when they were renovating, I was through
Yeah.
it because we wired some of it. And to be quite frank, at that time, the committee's heart was in the right place, but they had no construction experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff like the softwoods and the insulation in the wall and the heating system and all of that stuff was all about money. It wasn't about longevity.
Right.
And nobody at that time, you know, everybody was excited that they were doing what they did. And God bless them, they did. But in the same sense, they weren't looking down the road for, you know, it should have been a boiler system in it. It should have been, instead of styrofoam insulation in the walls and strap, it should have been, you know, there's a lot of things that should have happened at that time that didn't happen. And looking at the report here, I mean, you guys have, as far as I'm concerned, really done a good job of detailing and coming out what you're gonna do. And I think your heart and your interest is in making it look good again and the town look good. And we have had owners that weren't good stewards of the past because it wouldn't be in the
Right.
condition it's in if they were, right? If they were really not just interested in collecting a rent check. And I certainly think that this is heading in the right direction for sure. And sometimes the piece, when they say styrofoam and stuff like that, 30 feet in the air, nobody's gonna know the difference between the wood and it comes down to a cost. And as any renovation we get into, you start ripping stuff apart, you're only unveiling the Christmas present inside that you may run into. So, you know, I think the vinyl window thing is, you've answered my question, and I think you're a good steward, and I know the timeline on windows and stuff. At least we should get the motion going that we can get you going.
Yeah, because, and you're right about how they did the building with some of the renovations that I've done in there and just upgrading the apartments. That's why we chose to do the EFS on the outside, because rather than rip apart all the apartments, I just added 2 inches of rock salt to the outside of the building, and the tenants, oh, immediately they knew the difference was incredible. Yeah, and yeah, some of those little apartments with 9 baseboard heaters in them.
Yeah, well, it was $4,000 a month, and that was years ago. And I talked to Gene Edmonds, and like, we're lucky we have tenants in it, let alone.
Yeah.
You know, so I see this as a really great opportunity for everybody, win-win.
And we finally have made the basement dry. Finally, asphalt that parking lot, slope everything correctly away from it. I worked with Matt and the fire marshal about the fire separations and everything in the basement. We've actually expelled quite a bit of money to make sure that the cave, because it was not done correctly originally with the fire separations down in there. It's time. There's no money tree. I dug in the
No.
basement. I didn't find the pot of gold. So we're takes
Did you
time.
find the body?
It was-
His name's Henry, apparently.
But that took a turn right there, didn't it? Maybe we'll get back on track. Well, I get, yeah, like from me personally, reading the report, yeah. To restate what you said, like clearly, if you're doing, you know, asking somebody to do this report, clearly you have good intention for long-term heritage. And you know, all of my questions are just to clarify where we stand as a committee and make sure that we understand what we're doing here, so. Anybody else have any more input or the The motion as written is on the agenda, so. The West Perth Heritage Committee recommend that the Council of Municipality of West Perth approve the conservation plan for the restoration and preservation of the front facade, 55 Ontario Road, the Hicks House, as prepared by West Hall Heritage Research and Consulting. So I will be looking for either proposed amendment to that statement or a motion to put that forward. And then we will go to a vote. Yeah, anybody can do it.
I propose to move forward with the motion to recommend the council.
Okay. Right. Then we will take a vote on this motion. We'll look for a nod or away from all committee members on
So
how
all
you
in
vote.
favor?
Yep, all in favor. We will see it, consider that pass, Audrey. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming today too.
Not a problem. I appreciate your time and making this meeting happen quickly for me.
Yep, no problem. So our next meeting is January 26th. That'll be a little bit more of our normal meeting where we'll discuss more things. It'll be here, 9 a.m. Yes, yeah. So then the only thing I need is a motion to adjourn. By Christopher.
There's floor plans for.
Anybody? Oh, don't talk yet. We gotta close the meeting. Yeah, we have them. All in favor of adjourning the meeting? It is passed. Thank you, everybody. Now you can talk.
The camera turned off.
Well, the camera might be still on.